Regarding Men, episode 41. Happy International Men's Day.
Okay, well, here we are for another episode of Regarding Men. And appropriately for the day, we're discussing International Men's Day. And especially, we're going to be looking at how feminists have been interested in International Men's Day. My motto is always, you may not be interested in feminism, but feminism is interested in you. And here's an example. Many men may want to celebrate International Men's Day in a relatively non-political, non-ideological, non-combative way, simply to recognize men's issues and to affirm men's achievements and contributions, but feminism is not comfortable with that. So that's our topic. So a little history. Oh, I forgot to say, I'm Janice Flamingo, obviously, and I am here with the indefatigable Tom Golden of Men Are Good, and the ineffable Paul Elam.
I've been effed many times.
And Paul, of course, is associated, the creator of, I should say, A Voice for Men and An Ear for Men. So a little bit of history on International Men's Day, which Paul was just saying before we went on air, is the origins are shrouded in a certain amount of mystery, and I don't know what the origins are. There's an interesting master's thesis for somebody in a men's issues program somewhere, or just somebody who wants to do it. It seems to have kind of started, I think, back in the early 1990s, and then it was re-inaugurated in 1999 by a group of men in Trinidad and Tobago. And interestingly enough, of course, International Women's Day has been in existence since about 1910.
Is that BC?
Yeah, BC. Because as we all know, when a patriarchy wants to demean, humiliate, and dehumanize its victims, what it first does is it celebrates a day dedicated specifically to that victim group. We've seen that throughout history, right? So yes, International Men's Day seems to have begun in 1999. It had as its goal to it had 4 pillars, I think it is what is listed, that it wanted to focus on men and boys' health issues. It wanted to focus on issues of gender equality. It wanted to focus on relations between men and women, and on male role models. So essentially it wants to look at men's contributions to their communities, to their families, and that sort of thing. It's now, I think, acknowledged, this is according to Wikipedia, so I haven't done in-depth research. I think Wikipedia said it's acknowledged in about 80 countries. Unfortunately, though, as we've discovered, attempts to acknowledge it in various countries are often met with very angry resistance by feminists who don't even want there to be a single day that is dedicated to men's issues, at least not in a way that is controlled by men themselves, or that can discuss men's issues outside of the feminist framework. And so we see
every day is Men's Day.
Exactly. That's often the phrase that we hear. Oh, well, that's all we do. All we ever do every day is talk about men's achievements and men's contributions. So why do we need a day specifically directed towards that end? And so we hear from feminists that they're okay with a day to discuss men's issues, but it always has to be within the feminist framework. It always has to be about talking about how men can be better allies and can become more feminist, and can, acknowledge how patriarchy hurts them too. And we've seen that over and over again. And both of you two, of course, have addressed this irritation in various ways. So let's talk about some instances. I've got a few, but I don't know. Do one of you guys want to go first?
Well, I would just want to say from the beginning that I'm just overwhelmed. I mean, the feminists are right. Every day is International Men's Day, and I'm just overwhelmed by all the daily attention that goes to men's issues, and men's vulnerabilities, and the things that uniquely or disproportionately affect men and boys.
Yeah,
I think we're just drowning in attention here.
Yeah, all the newspaper articles and the movies and the everything, and the TV commercials painting men as being good, It's just
universities are all slanted toward male research on male problems.
All those men and men's issues studies departments, and
it's an embarrassment of riches. It really is.
It really is. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh boy, it's a mess.
Yeah.
With that in mind, happy International Men's Day to all.
Happy International Men's Day.
Exactly. Maybe we should say that first. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Happy International Men's Day. I'm certainly thankful for men.
Yes,
I like the fact that men are in the world. I don't want men to change. I like men's energy. I like men's stick-to-itiveness. I like men's focus on the work they do. I like the way men are in the world. And any suggestion that men need to become more like women is the last thing I want men ever to pay attention to.
And I love men's courage. I love their curiosity. I love their creativity. You know, I love their courage, their warriorship, you know, in getting things done.
Absolutely.
So many things about men.
Not just that, too. I mean, one of the things I admire most about men is their ability to thrive in adversity.
Yeah.
Right now, we live in a time that is so hostile toward men. It's absolutely unconscionable. It's amazing when you watch what's playing out on the world stage right now. When you have a earthquake and they said, okay, we're not going to give food to men, just to women. Listen, that's what happened in Haiti after the earthquake there. Thank you to the Clintons on that. But men, even in the midst of all that, find a way to thrive. They find a way to be happy. They can just take one adversity after another and ignore it.
It's amazing.
Go ahead and pursue their goals. And that's worthy of a lot of admiration.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah,
it really is.
Hell is. Yeah. I mean, we talked last week about male resilience, and it never ceases to amaze me, really, that in spite of all the negative messaging, every bloody day, nasty, hectoring attacks on masculinity and what men do and who they are and how they have to change, and, you know, how women are so great just to put up with them. So many men just continue on. They shake it off like water off a duck's back. And I would also say, though, to those men that are angry every day about it, I hear you too. And you have every right to be angry about it and not to have a sunny disposition when you don't feel like it, because it is absolutely unconscionable what our culture has become.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
Part of the history, I think, that deserves to be recognized here, and some of the cloudiness around International Men's Day, is that, for all we know, it did start in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the information that we have. It was started by a group of men who were concerned not just about positive role models and things like that for men, but also about the discrimination that men face socially, legally, academically, on all levels. And they made that one of their founding principles for International Men's Day, and I'll read you what they voted on in 2009. One of the elements of their platform is to highlight discrimination against men in areas of social services, social attitudes, and expectations, and law. And since that has been entered into the agenda, we've seen a concerted effort by feminists to co-opt the event, to remove that from it, and to make this about getting men to be less toxic. The standard feminist agenda. So I have to say, as sorry as I am to say it, that I urge men to precede each International Men's Day celebration with an element of caution. If you're giving them money or if you're participating in events, look around you. And if you see a big banner about toxic masculinity right next to you,
you're in the wrong place.
You're in the wrong International Men's Day. Actually, they are. But if you try to remove them, you'll get nothing but grief. And I had an experience with this a few years back when I was invited to speak, to provide a videos speech to the Dublin City Council on International Men's Day. And the feminists who heard that I was going to speak there went to the City Council, complained, and got me removed from the roster. this is what's happening to International Men's Day, which makes it all the more important, this thing about resiliency that Janice and Tom were talking about, that we were all talking about. This is an important part of men's character going into understanding this, that we may just have to, shuck off that particular celebration or to view it differently. But we got to recognize that feminists are involved in this now. They're ruining it. And we need to be careful about what we're supporting.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're very, very sneaky.
Yep.
Yeah.
Reminds me, we'll link this video below, but I did a video a while back on how they snuck into International Men's Day in Australia in 2017. And it is a template for what we need to look out for, really. Because for the event, they got this wonderful, web page that says International Men's Day event sponsored by the Australian, what did it say? Australian Men's Center or something like that, right? Wow, that's great. You look down at the very bottom of the page in the tiny little print. What does it say? It says, no, this event is really sponsored by the Australian Women's Center, which owns the rights to the idea of Australian Men's Center. So it's like, what? So this feminist organization came in and did a daggone conference on International Men's Day that was basically feminist. Yeah. I mean, the opening was given by the feminist who was the top person in the Australian Women's Center, right? And then the next was the White Ribbon Campaign came in and gave an opening for the conference. Wait a minute, these two don't sound like they're into men's stuff. Because that year, the theme for International Men's Day was Celebrate Men and Boys. Well, trust me, there wasn't a whole lot of celebrating men and boys at this conference,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if you just look at the video shows the descriptions of the conference workshops. One was the conference theme was to inspire men to connect, grow, and transform. Okay, that's not
okay.
too
We
bad.
Can go into the code speak on all of that.
And translated means men need to change and get better.
Men need to change.
Well, hello there.
Yeah, yeah.
And this group had done a women's conference just maybe, I think, a couple of months before. And what was the title of that conference? You've got everything to take the world in your stride.
Yeah.
And those two tell you exactly what they're talking about. Women have everything. And the men, you need to transform into something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And that's what they do. This is tied to a lot of other similar circumstances. A lot of, I don't know how many people will remember it, but there used to be a very robust online skeptic community.
Yes.
It was a huge, cohesive community that got into a great deal of philosophy and cutting edge argumentation and thought leading on a lot of different matters. And feminists waltzed in the door, told them they were all sexist, demanded that they subscribe to feminist ideology. And if you look at the work of people like P.Z. Myers and Matt Dillahunty, they did it. They all bowed to the feminist goddess, said all men are crap through logic. This is the skeptic community. Through logic and evidence and empiricism out the window entirely and the community fell apart after that. It's nothing compared to what it used to be. Similar stuff happened in the gaming community. That's what we had Gamergate, was about. These were feminist ideologues coming in to co-opt, take over, and destroy everything that they didn't agree with, which is pretty much anything male.
And they were attacking men's space.
Now it's happening to IMD.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were going into men's space because literally I think the skeptic community was pretty much a male space. There were females there, but I think it was pretty much a male space. The gaming community, of course, is even more so a male space, and that's what they don't like. No. How dare men have their own space?
Mm-hmm. No, there can't be any corner of the world where men can just do their thing without feminist intervention, feminist oversight, feminist
Yes.
control.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody wants to do a study on this kind of thing, I mean, the documents out there are fascinating. All you have to do is Google, for instance, York University in the UK cancels its commemoration of International Men's Day. This happened back in 2015. And it's a kind of case study of how feminists respond to any attempt to highlight gender inequality from a male positive perspective and to look at men's issues outside of the feminist framework. And this was just a case where somebody from the Equity and Diversity Committee at York University made the mistake of thinking they could actually honor International Men's Day. They released a statement saying they were going to. They even in the statement said, our focus is primarily on women's inequality and on removing barriers for women's success. But we're going to, on this one day of the year, look at some of the barriers to men's equality.
Wow.
And they mentioned things you can't possibly argue about, such as the fact that male numbers at university are on a dramatic decline and that men are now the minority, and even a dramatic minority in many faculties at universities all across the Western world. And they talked about other health issues affecting men, and the feminist community at York University just went nuts. They wrote a furious open letter to the chair of the Equity and Diversity Committee. And they said, how dare you? How dare you? And this is going to ruin the reputation of York University because you're associating yourself with misogynistic groups such as the men's rights movement. And they went on and on and on. And they said the final sentence in the statement was that equality means equality for everybody. They said this smacked of the most egregious misogyny. They said they were willing to have a day where they looked at the ways that patriarchy hurts men and how male privilege does indeed damage men, but it had to be within those very, very narrow confines. And all the documents about this, and it's very lengthy, the original letter that that 200 feminists on campus signed is still up on the website. I'll send it to you, Tom, to post under this video.
Yeah.
And then all the follow-up letters that they wrote, and they got blowback, and they were so furious that they got blowback. And that we're receiving hostile attack on Twitter. We've had hostile. Yeah. We now we need another a special inquiry into why anybody has written back in a hostile way, and we've been misrepresented, and we've received death threats and rape threats. Although of course they never showed any of these so-called death and rape threats. Anyway, so it's all there online, and ultimately very quickly, they were successful in having the whole day canceled. The president of the Equity and Diversity Committee immediately apologized and said that York University would not indeed observe this day. And that's, just entirely typical of how universities have responded to feminist resistance, to acknowledging in any non-feminist manner that men have any problems at all in the world or in universities in particular. It's just amazing.
It's the power of gynocentrism.
Yeah.
And they've tapped into that.
Yeah.
And the power of fascism.
Yeah.
Well, the fascists have tapped into this power and used it for their own well-being. It's like crazy.
The terror. I mean, it was such a clear instance of a case where if that guy, the head of the Equity and Diversity Committee, had just had a tiny bit of spine, he wasn't he wouldn't have lost his job in a case like this.
You sure?
I mean, I guess, that occurred to him as a possibility. And it isn't entirely unlikely. But I think he could have come forward and said, giving complete respect to you feminists, we are going to go ahead with the day. And, if you have issues with it, well, we can have discussion about it, but we are going to go forward. But to think that he immediately caved and said, we're not going to acknowledge it after all, and we're so sorry. just unbelievable. You know, the cowardice, the incredible
Yes.
pusillanimity is just
Yes.
mind-boggling. And there was a recent case, somebody sent me all the emails related to it at a college called Vanier College in Montreal, where an intrepid professor of English in the English department there thought it might be a good idea to show the red pill on International Men's Day. Yeah, wow, is he ever living in some alternate universe? And so he wrote a very nice email saying he thought the red pill was a wonderful, you know, general introduction to men's issues, and you know, he was really excited to show it, and he invited everybody to come. It wasn't mandatory, of course, or anything. It was totally outside of you know, class hours, but he invited his fellow instructors to attend and to consider showing it to their classes and everything. I mean, it was amazing. And then within a couple of days, he had to send out another email saying, oh, it's been deferred. He had an extensive discussion with the dean of his faculty, and it turns out it doesn't seem that there's quite enough time to show the film in the slot. I mean, it was
That's
so
how
sad.
we know every day is International Men's Day.
It's a long film.
Yeah, it's a long film. And get this, the point that was made was that there really needed to be a panel discussion after the film. Guess who was going to be completely stacked on that panel? Yeah, we got to have all the feminists on the panel to quickly tell everybody who watched the film that nothing in the film is to be taken seriously.
I must have missed my invitation. I'm sure they sent me one.
Yeah, but I have to give the fellow his due. He is sort of pushing on, and he's saying, you know, he really laid down a challenge to, I can imagine the kind of blowback that he got from his colleagues. But he laid down a challenge and he said, you know, let's model for our students then the civil way to have discussions about controversial issues that we disagree about. And yes, I invite those who express to me their private reservations to come out and express those reservations in public, and let's have a full discussion about this film.
Wow.
I doubt he'll ever be able to show it, really.
What is this man's name?
His name is...
he should get the damn humanitarian award.
Yeah, I know. He's a really good guy. I'm not sure if I have it now.
That's
Kevin something. I'll send it to you and let you know.
We will call him Kevin for now.
Yeah.
That's enough. I don't mean to...
And I thought, you know, good for him that's
amazing.
You know, that he's still hoping, although I'm sure he had an extremely uncomfortable making discussion with the dean, and I'm sure he had a lot of nasty reaction from his various feminist colleagues, because the English department at Vanier College, like the English departments at all, you know, colleges and universities across North America, is heavily feminist.
Oh man, I can't wait to get this guy's email address and email him and tell him thank you for standing up for the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's still a few people out there.
Yeah, we got to reinforce those people.
Yeah, to have positive discussions about men's issues, even in the belly of the beast, even at universities.
Yes.
And that is, it's unfortunate we do have all this fascism, because the Red Pill movie really is a brilliant introduction to men's issues.
Yes, it is.
And there you got 117 minutes. Woo. I'm sure they've never spent 117 minutes on any other project in that university.
Yeah, exactly.
The introduction that is very important, but again, it's outside the feminist perspective, so it's not going to be tolerated.
Yeah.
Like everything else in the Every Day is Men's Day world.
It just tells us exactly what we need to do, and that is we need to start saying no.
Yeah.
Even though the gynocentrism is strong, and even though we may have a lot of negative consequences, we need to say no, particularly the men. We need to say no, not today, not on my watch. You know?
Yeah.
Whether it's in your relationship, or whether it's in your community, whether it's nationally, we need to say no.
Yeah. Stand up and say, I'm not going to back down, because we're talking about male suicide. We're talking about addictions. We're talking about homelessness. We're talking about parental alienation. We're talking about massive injustices, whether you recognize them or not, you bigots. We have to start taking the fight directly back to the feminists and calling them what they are. Bigots, chauvinists, misandrists, haters, because that's what they are. They've been throwing around those terms for 40 years where they didn't apply at all. And now they really do apply.
Yes, exactly right, Janice.
You know, that brings to mind a conversation I had a few years ago with Angry Harry, God rest his soul.
Bless his heart.
And it's an area where Harry and I disagreed. He believed that we really need to come out and say no, as Tom was saying, but to generalize it, that not to name names, specific people and such. And my approach has always been, you have to take on the individuals and what they're doing. And it provided an interesting contrast between Harry and I. He spoke in general terms. I like to get specific, but I really think that if we're going to call out the bigotry that Janice was just talking about, we have to call out the bigots.
Yes. And I think
the bigotry.
I would just add that I think Harry was right, and I think you were right. We need both.
Yep.
And some people are going to be better at calling out the individuals. Some people are going to be better at just saying no. And whatever you do best, do that.
Yeah.
But whatever
Paul, you're great, man, at calling out the individual. There's nobody better than you at that.
Well, nobody has more fun at it than I do.
Well, there you go. Yeah, but it's very effective. It's extremely effective. And we need more of it. But there's not that many Paul Elams out there. You know, it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that.
It's incredibly hard to stand up against the entire society.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get inspiration from a line from The Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah.
I know he was a socialist and it's a socialist story. But Tom Joad said, you know, when somebody near the end of the story had told him that he was being extremely courageous. And he says, it's not courage when there's nothing else you can do.
Right. Right.
And that's what I firmly believe. I mean, we are talking about men's suicide. Hell, we're talking about boys' suicide.
Yeah.
We're talking about boys being poisoned with psychotropic medications that are so powerful and have unpredictable effects on their body. There is so much stuff to talk about here.
Boys being mutilated.
And boys being mutilated as a matter of routine. And I know that less than half of 1% of the population is willing to even notice.
Yep.
So we do need people to get loud.
Yep.
That's how changes come. So, getting loud and getting in people's faces.
So get loud on International Men's Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a perfect excuse to bring up men's issues wherever you are. Oh, it's Men's Day. Have you thought about domestic violence and men don't get the services? You know.
And if you see that toxic masculinity banner, just think of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and you're the one with the pointing fingers at them, making weird noise, because they need to be called out. Feminists have no place in International Men's Day. They do not belong there. Yeah. They need to go away and leave men alone to have their own event. And they should stay the fuck out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And men don't feel you have to apologize ever for talking about men's issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the world is wired to shame us for doing it.
Boy, it really is.
Our every day is International Men's Day, is that we live in a world that's wired to silence and shame us if we even mention that suicide is a gender issue.
Yep.
And
you got the gynocentrism working to fuel the feminists whatever they want. And then you've got precarious manhood, which keeps men from standing up, because if they stand up, they go down in the hierarchy. So the whole thing's a setup, man. It's a big mess. It's a setup.
And it is a brilliant manipulation of the process of sexual selection in the human species by ideologues. They have absolutely
Yep.
performed brilliantly.
Yep. It's a sad note to end
Or
on.
selling feminism was like selling free money.
Yeah, really. That's about right. It's a downhill slope, man. And for men, it's an uphill slope. You know, even to mention male suicide, it's an uphill slope. You get crap for that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I would like to encourage all men who are participating in an International Men's Day event, if you're part of this whole process, and you see something that doesn't belong, say something.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
There's your chance. You don't have to get on the internet to do it. You can do it right there face to face.
Indeed.
And ask them, what are you doing here? You don't like men. Why are you at an International Men's Day when you subscribe to an ideology that hates men?
Yeah.
And that question should be asked.
Yes, it should be. Yes,
and of course, that will get classified as potential rape threat, death threat. When they say we got death threats, they heard something like that.
It's a stacked deck, man. It's a stacked deck. You can't win. So you just got to keep trying, keep in there. Humanitarian award?
I'd say Kevin.
I'd say Kevin.
Okay.
Janice says
clarify who Kevin was.
Yes, and we'll put Kevin in the low bar.
Kevin may not feel comfortable being congratulated by us.
Yeah,
probably not.
I was going to say that
maybe a very discomforting thing for Kevin to be congratulated.
We probably ought to leave his last name out so I don't get one of those emails that says, "Can you remove this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Matter of fact, I had to remove an item from A Voice for Men this morning over a professor who I will not name was made public statements objecting to male genital mutilation, and he was fired by his university.
What?
And now can't get a job anywhere because he opposed MGM.
And it was related to that?
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
He made statements against MGM. They called him in and fired him. That's how we got International Men's Day every day. That's how every day.
That's crazy.
It is for men. And this happened in Australia, one of the worst feminist strangleholds on the planet. But yeah, that just came in, and Mike Buchanan at Justice for Men and Boys had a post about it. He removed it. All trying. So now that this guy can possibly get a job teaching secondary education.
Jeez. Unbelievable. So Kevin, we will keep your last name out of it, but thank you for standing up, you know. Yep. And the Buddha.
I think we thought we were going to give a posthumous puta to the White Ribbon Campaign Australia, which no longer exists, but for a long time did its dirty work.
In no time, in her beautiful white ribbon.
Yes, they were making lots of money. They finally got exposed to the Australian public, who caught on to what kind of rigged game they were doing at White Ribbon Foundation, and they ran out of money and had to fold.
Remember that conference I was talking about?
It looked good on them.
Guess what happened with that conference? The Australian Women's blah, 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 gave the proceeds to White Ribbon. Oh, God. So International Men's Day conference, the proceeds go to White Ribbon. So bye-bye, White Ribbon. Glad you're gone.
Yeah, glad you're gone.
All
about toxic masculinity and shaming men for violence against women and not caring at all about the fact that men are the victims of violence more often than women.
There's no money in male victims. That's why they didn't care.
No money.
Yeah.
No glory, no money.
But anyway, you guys get the Puda posthumously. I love it. And I think that wraps up. I want to wish everybody, even if it's co-opted by feminists in some places, I want to wish all the men out there a happy International Men's Day. Celebrate it the way you want it.
Indeed.
Nobody gets to tell you how to do that.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And you deserve a day. You deserve the other 364 too.
Yeah.
That's discussion for another.
Well, those 364 are Women's Day, right?
Well,
it's never Women's Day. Women are. We never do anything for women.
Oh God, of course not.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So we're finished.
All right.
Y'all take care. Happy Men's Day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.